Hello, everyone. I'm Dan Gershenson from Caliber Brand Strategy and Content Marketing. As always, I'm joined by Paul Barthel of Changescape Web, Ian Cantil of Outsource Marketing, and Jen Kelly of New Initiatives Marketing. Welcome, everyone. Well, I'm going to say something that could be controversial. It wouldn't be the first time. The client is not always right. Yes, I said it. The client is not always right. But the agency is not always right either. The way we communicate it through the duration of a relationship means everything. But let's face it, anybody who says they've figured out how to have the perfect client relationship every time is lying. There's the honeymoon phase when everyone's excited, but then it's not long before there are tests and challenges for both sides of the table. So today, we're going to speak to what you can do to set, correct, repair, save, and grow the business relationship, whether you're the client or the agency. And we're going to draw on our own experiences, some good, some bad, to enlighten you. And I've encouraged everyone on this call to jump right in whenever they feel like it. Let me start by speaking to one here that I think is one of the biggest challenges to a business relationship, which is before it even begins. As it says in the song, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. So I guess one of the things I might throw out here to all of you is, when you and another party are just about to agree to an engagement, what kinds of things do you look for to indicate whether you want to go full throttle with that client, or conversely, what kinds of things, little behaviors here and there or things that are said kind of give you a red flag? So again, we're talking a little bit about just before you might agree to an engagement, what kinds of things are really good and what kinds of things are, whoa, let's pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, I can start us off.
Start us off, Ian.
Sure. Yeah. One of the things that's a red flag for me is if, a lot of people have been hurt by posers, right? Or people that were well-meaning but couldn't follow through because they just didn't have either the capability or the systems, whatever it may be. And so a lot of people come to us who are hurt. They've been frustrated by their marketing agencies. And so one of the red flags I watch for is whether how the relationship of trust begins. Because if we can't get through that pain, and if I can't build trust with that person, it's doomed, right? They're just going to come in with an attitude that all agencies are going to take their money and not perform what they say they will, when in fact that's not our experience when we work with clients. So that's just a big red flag that I watch for. I'm not worried about working with people that have been hurt, because we help those kind of people experience a new type of marketing. But it's that openness to hearing how there's a different way that you can do marketing, and if they're ready to try that and open to that, then that red flag drops down, and it can be a really, really great relationship. We've worked with people like that, and we've talked them off the ledge of leaving marketing forever. So
kind of like marketing doesn't work for us. It doesn't work for our industry, eh?
Yes. Yeah. And that's a great point, Jen. Like, a lot of people think, I tried that previously. That's, in fact, you just led into another great red or yellow flag is, I've tried that before. I've tried Google Ads before. I've tried direct mail before. I've tried email marketing before. But, if there's openness to, here's why we can do it a different way, and it's going to produce different results for you. If they're open to that, then that again, it's paving the way to a good relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, one of the, I guess, telltale signs that things are going to be or off to a good start, or could be off to a good start, is responsiveness. So you're going to have a bit of a back and forth, either over email, video, phone calls, whatever it is, as you're getting the deal together. So trying to see how responsive the other party is to the questions, to, coming to the calls on time, that kind of thing will give you a good indication of how it is to work together. Um, one of the red flags would be for me is if there's unrealistic timelines right up front. They want ABC done within 3 weeks, and it really is a 3-month type of process. So those would be the two things ultimately that I would look for.
Yeah, basically what Jen said for us is if there's a lack of responsiveness from the client in the beginning, it doesn't mean we're not going to work with them. It just means that you need to put some more effort into setting expectations that this is a partnership. Okay, we can't read your mind, and you have to be involved. And if we have to send you 5 emails before we get a response a month later, to us, that's a red flag, because what's going to happen is they're not going to respond, and then they're going to come back and say, well, why isn't this or that not done? It's like, well, because we sent you 15 emails that you haven't responded to. We've called you and you haven't returned our calls. So a lot of times I think that's a matter of setting expectations right up front and saying, look, you have to be involved in this. You can't just throw stuff at us and expect us to read your mind.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think there's different levels too, making sure that the you and the client are both aware, like, are we talking once every 2 weeks? Is this kind of like the type of support we're giving you in the background, or are we, at your beck and call, every day? And both those ways of working are, able to be done, but it has to, that's going to increase the price of the program. But everybody has to know that if we're on, we're doing work for you, we're checking in with you once a week, and all of a sudden you have a panic and you want us checking in with you every 2 hours, that's a whole different ball game. So understanding the level of service, I think, is really important.
Yeah, one of the other things that comes to mind too is actually 2 things. One is competitiveness. I love working with. I'm competitive. I love playing competitive sports. I love being competitive. I love going up against other agencies and trying to win the business because we have a better way of doing things in our viewpoint. And so I love working with business owners who are competitive. They want to beat their competition. They want to be the very best they can be in their space. And so that's not necessarily a red flag. We do work with people that aren't quite as competitive in nature, but I truly love working with those kind of people. It's a lot of fun, and they keep us on our toes, and we keep them on their toes, and continue to motivate them onto bigger things. One of the other things I was thinking of was, and it just flew away. It's just, it was a great point, guys. Let's see if I look outside. Does it fly toward anybody else have a point while I'm thinking about what I was going to say?
How on the ball your clients
Yeah,
are, right? Yeah. That's very interesting about the competitiveness, though. Actually, I haven't heard that from you yet. So I'm sitting here going, oh, Ian, we're learning something interesting about you. But that's very true. It gives a different energy to the engagement, doesn't it?
Yeah. And probably why you don't realize that when you meet me and know me, Jen, is because I'm a nice competitive person. Like, I'm not a mean, like, there's mean competitive people, right?
Yes,
But
yes.
we've all played against them in sports, and then there's nice people that still want, good sportsmanship and that kind of stuff. And that's how I am. The other thing I was thinking of, it came back, was when I'm talking with a client, we always can produce better results and do the best work we can for our clients when we do a systematic, cohesive, integrated approach to marketing. And so one of the big red flags to me is when they start saying, well, can we pull this out and not do this? And can we add this? And there's always flexibility. There's always customization we're able to do. but I always coach them. And this is kind of where the red flag pops up, is if they won't listen to my coaching, for whatever reason, because of the filter with which they look through the world of marketing at, if they say, well, I don't think we need email marketing, or I don't think we need content development. Obviously, without content development, your SEO is going to suffer, your website's going to suffer, your social media is going to suffer, email marketing is going to suffer, and so stuff like that, we coach, or I coach them on. You're going to highly diminish your results, and yeah, we can serve you, but you're not going to be happy with the results if we start pulling out some key pillar items of how we do a systematic approach.
Sorry, I had myself on mute. I apologize. I'm like, why can't I hear myself? The thing I want to ask you about, Ian, is you were starting to go down this road, which I think is when we talk about the first month or first quarter as a bit of a honeymoon phase, where people are. I think the pattern is people are generally excited about getting started. But this is one of the trickiest phases too. I think the challenging thing sometimes is we ask them, they're excited, and then we have to sometimes ask them for things that are sort of boring, things that are like usernames and passwords and things like that are, not the most exciting. And they're like, oh, geez, I got to track that down. So what kinds of things can we tell? What kind of expectation setting, I guess, can be done here by both parties to maybe just extend that period of a honeymoon a little bit longer than, say, the typical 30 days or so that we tend to see? I know it doesn't last forever. If it is, then I must be doing something wrong, but I've never seen it actually last forever. There's usually more of a settling down and a comfort zone, and hopefully a good thing. But when, in your experience, how do you set some good expectations off the bat?
Yeah, I love that question, Dan. I think it's a great question. What I would say is it all starts even before we get to the buy phase, when clients are buying from us. It's part of the sales process. It's part of the education process. Certainly, we don't drive people away during the sales process, and scare them. But we try to be very upfront with them that, they're even in our agreements that we do with our clients, when they sign an agreement with us on what they're going to get and what we're going to give them, in there we outline, this is what we expect from you. This is what you can expect from us, of course, because we're the service provider to you. But as a service provider to you, and a partner in doing your marketing, an extension of your business and doing your marketing, this is what we need you to do for us before or to be successful. Like, if you don't agree to these, then don't sign the agreement. And that's things like, we need your responsiveness. So you need to respond to any asks or questions or approvals within 72 hours, assuming it's not like hey, review this entire website within 72 hours. That's not what I mean. But if we have an email that's going to go out, and we need them to review that in a timely manner. If we have a blog post, we need them to review that in a timely manner in order to keep the whole engine running. Otherwise, our team is going to be scrambling, reduces our effectiveness for that client. So we have stipulations like that in order to serve them better. So the 72-hour turnaround time, response time, we're very clear on, if there's something that's bothering you, you tell us, right? You were talking about reading, we can't read your minds. We are an external part of your team, so we're not in your office. We don't hear the buzz. So things like that. But I really do think it's the relationship you're building through the know, like, trust, try, and then the buy phase that really sets off that honeymoon phase, where if you can make it as smooth as possible, it's going to be a winning relationship. And even sometimes in the try phase, if we're doing kind of a light audit for them or a review of something, we might even be asking them for access to some of their systems in order to, first of all, give them a great value add that's for free, just to understand what, here's some things about your business you didn't know about. But then also it's making it easier once they buy from us, because we don't have to ask them for as many things on the tail end either. So I would say, it's a relationship. The other thing I would say too is just quick wins. As an agency, we try to find things, again, even in the try, and as we're going through the buy phase, we're setting up the plan for this client. We know that, hey, here's some low-hanging fruit that's going to be a quick win that we can make them. We don't want people to buy from us and then have remorse, right? We don't want buyer's remorse, but it's a natural thing. When somebody makes that decision, everybody has a little bit of caution there, like, did I make the right decision? And so as an agency, we're trying to really reduce that and really show them some great quick wins as quickly as possible, so that they're like, yes, I did make the right decision. I'm already seeing some great stuff out of these guys. I'm feeling good about the relationship.
And Dan, something you said earlier about tracking down passwords and usernames, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you as a client, if you don't know usernames and passwords to certain accounts, that should tell you something right there, that there are aspects of your business that you don't have control over. A lot of times some of these accounts were set up 5-10 years ago, when social media wasn't as important as it is, or you just had someone on your team set it up because it had to be done. And the world has changed, and said it before, we live in a digital world now, and now it is a core part of your business, whereas when these accounts weren't set up, they weren't. But this is a good time to get all this stuff organized, make sure you have access to what you should have access to, and get everything under your control.
That's great. I think one of the other things, actually, as long as you're talking about it, Paul, is when you are starting out a relationship, there's a lot of stuff that you might have with sort of, I thought of you with this question. You got a lot of stuff with delayed gratification going on, especially when it comes to SEO. And so an SEO, a website, things that can't be done in 30, 60 days. And SEO, we know, can take 6 months, maybe longer. So what kinds of things do you suggest we can kind of tell a client about these longer term projects to put their mind at ease, especially when there's a lot that they're not going to see right away? It's a lot of, it's coming, it's going to be good. Anything that you do in your experience with, let's take SEO as a great example, where it's a lot that they can't see.
Yeah, well, I'll take both of them. With the website, I think just staying in touch and letting them know, because we develop websites in the staging area, and this is where expectations have to be set, because it can be a double-edged sword. You want to keep them in the loop, let them know things are happening, even show them the progress. But then that opens the door to, oh, well, can we change this? No. Okay. Because that just delays and how long it's going to take. And a lot of times when you're dealing with websites, we develop websites from an SEO perspective. And a lot of the client is, all they care about is how it looks. They don't understand how on the back end that translates to SEO. Yes, yes, you do want it to look good, but you don't want to do things that are going to hurt your SEO. A lot of times we have clients that they want a video, that the hero image, the banner, they want a video up there. That kills your load time. And Google does not like slow loading websites. So that kind of leads into SEO. Is, again, that's just a conversation saying, look, SEO takes time. Like you said, it can take up to 6 months. but it also depends on where they're starting from. We have a client that just signed on not too long ago. They have no content, no blog posts. They have pages that talk about their services, but they have no blogs, no content. And it's like, look, it's going to take some time to get you to rank for anything, because Google barely knows you exist, because you have a few pages about your services, but you have no blog content talking really about what you do, what your business is all about. Why should Google trust you? Goes back to expertise, authority, and trust. What have you done to make Google or any other search engine trust you? And so that's just a conversation to set expectations that SEO takes time. We can't control what Google does. Google's going to do whatever they want to do. And all we can do is work within those parameters. But I think a big part of it is, like I said, just setting expectations and having that conversation, saying these things take time. Here's what we're doing. I'll even tell them about structured data. You don't have to understand what that is, but you do have to know that it's important to search engines, and it's coding that happens on the backside. You'll never see it, but the search engine bots that crawl the website will, and it helps the search engines understand what your website is about. And that actually goes a long way to alleviating those issues.
That's great. Jen, a lot of agencies, I think they fall in love with analytics, they fall in love with reports, but this is a hard one. But how much is too much? Because I've literally heard some clients say about a web firm they brought in, they're sending me this stuff and I don't know what most of it even means. So meanwhile, the web firm probably thinking, well, geez, we sure are thorough. Our report looks really good. So it seems to be sometimes there's this disconnect that can happen, and it's not a break, but a little tear in that relationship starts to become visible. And it's not that the client doesn't want analytics or doesn't want reports, but what do you think about, the right balance for an agency in terms of, okay, we want to educate the client, but what level is too light, and how much is just too far? How much is more than what they really need to know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's great. And it's kind of like our report cards, right? Every month or every week, like, look what we did, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, beyond us in the company, is seeing everything that we have done and what the results have been. I think it's a couple things. And it's first in getting to know the client. Like I have had some clients, I'm sure you guys have had them as well, that aren't really aware that there is, let's just say, Google Analytics, that you can't really tell how many people came to my website. So yeah, I think you have to quite seriously meet the client where they're at. How much do they know about the tracking that can go on? We've had other clients that were amazed that we could go and tell them who opened their email newsletters, right? And then you get the other folks that are very, very sophisticated on it and want to know all the information. So I think, first of all, just really understanding where the client is at on there. And if you're getting a client that isn't really sure, I think a good starting point would be like, well, what would be the most important thing for you to know about your marketing this month? And I'm sure we've all had clients that have had either, well, I'm not really sure my Facebook ads are working. I'm not really sure, the email newsletter is just such a hassle for us to do every month. Is it really worth it? Okay, great. If you can put some analytics behind a couple of pain points that they seem to have, then you can start to show them, oh, look, it is a bit of a bear to get that email newsletter out, but look at how many people open it. Look at what happens. Look at the web traffic, from those articles that we put in your newsletter. So I think you have to meet them where they're at about what they know about analytics, and then answer those questions. And then with every month or week or whatever your reporting cadence is, I would say just educate them a little bit more on what's possible.
Can I jump in and share a story?
Sure.
So we won the business of a really, really great client a couple of years ago, and during the proposal process, they were showing us reports that the previous agency had produced. They were also sharing with us the breakdown of where their spend was actually going to with that agency, so that we could understand, okay, well, this is your starting point. This is what you're currently getting every month. Here's the results you're getting. But they were sending this client reports that were like 30, 50 pages a month as PDFs. And so we were looking at this, and then when we started to look at the breakdown of where the actual cost for that agency was going, they were spending 12 hours a month to do reporting. And so one of the questions the client asked me during our proposal meeting was, are you going to continue doing that extensive reporting? And I just looked at him and I said, well, first of all, no, because tell me about the value of this reporting to you. First of all, I can tell you that from our perspective, if we were to spend 12 hours of our time doing reporting for you, that's probably not even being read. It's going to keep us from doing the powerful marketing activities that we can do on your behalf. So that made sense to them. But even just, talking it through with them and understanding that, yes, they weren't even using that reporting, and that how we approach reporting is really similar to what Jen was saying, is that you as a business owner have goals and objectives for your business. Usually they're related to profitability, revenue, might be patients in your clinic, might be sales of something. And then you work back from that as far as, how many customer calls you have and how many leads you need in order to get that many customer calls and that kind of thing. And so that's really the key analytics that we're trying to connect to, is what can we give you, Mr. or Miss or Mrs. Client, that will give you the information that will help you make decisions, whether it's about your marketing or whether about your business, because otherwise it's just a waste of your time and it's a waste of our time if it's actually not insightful decision-making value to you as a business. It's just wasted energy on everybody's behalf. We can throw 50-page reports at you if that's what you really want, if that's what's going to land the business. But I can tell you, it's a waste of everybody's time, right?
Yeah, I think it's we've seen this even in strategy stuff, where we've seen strategies that can be 75 pages, and I'm quite skeptical that they read half of it because it's just, here's everything we could ever tell you about, every possible thing. And it's probably a certain amount, like 25 maybe pages, something within an hour's time, where it's like, okay, this is what we need to know. This is about potential outcomes of our business. We don't need to know every single technical thing about what's in this, strategy. Not yet. I mean, it's too soon for that. But to your point, I think there's something where the middle ground of, yes, stay in touch with them, yes, report as much as you like, frequency wise, but there is such a thing as overload, and we're going to come back to this, but there are things I think that we think are important in love, and there's things that they're just like, I don't give a crap about any of that. And
you're right. Yeah. Like as a business owner, you want to know sales are going up, costs are going down, hopefully.
Yeah.
And the leading metrics that lead into those sales are all green and positive, right? That's all. As a business owner, if you could give them an executive dashboard, that's what it should be. Green, 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 yellow. Let's look deeper into the yellow.
Yeah, exactly. Here's a jump ball for all of us. This one is, I want to, not just make it client or anything like that. Agencies can get a whole lot wrong too. All of us have, and that's just the nature of the beast. But there are some worse offending things that tend to happen, say in the first 6 to 9 months. So this is a little sharing either horror stories that not that maybe you've done, but you've maybe seen or heard about. What are some of the worst things that agencies and web firms can do to potentially jeopardize that client relationships within that first 6 months or so? Like, when after that honeymoon period we talked about.
I would think the first thing, because 6 to 9 months is enough time to, to get to know and to build some relationships. And so I think one of the terrible things would be if the folks on the agency side didn't make an effort to really understand the business that the client is in, some of the nuances, the competitors, some of the issues in that industry, because marketing things can help them out of that. But I think in order to be to even think about calling yourself, raise yourself above a supplier and be a partner, you really need to understand what it is that they do. And I think 6 to 9 months is it's a fair amount of time that if you are brand new to that industry, you got some homework to do. And I don't think there's any excuse for not doing that. And I've seen some agencies not really do that.
Yeah. Ian, how about you?
Oh, the worst things. I'm trying to think. Like we're pretty careful. Like we're still a small, nimble business, so every client's important to us, right? And I hope that's how we're engineering our business to be, right? Is that we will always be caring of every client. But where I do find it goes off the guardrails is, and usually it's because we're getting the business now from another agency. So this is less about us and more about them, but it happens a lot in the larger agencies where no matter what you call them, usually account managers are the most junior people in the agency. That's not always true. Again, I'm talking about large agencies. That's been my experience when I've hired large agencies in the corporate world, is that you have fantastic discussions with the leaders of the agency who really get your business, and then it's handed off to a junior person who's called an account executive, which is a misnomer, but and then it's really about, are they serving us as well as we had expected? And you guys had talked about creating expectations properly when you're going into the relationship. And I find that's where a lot of businesses become very jaded very quickly. It's still a honeymoon phase, so they're trying their darned best to adapt to this change that they weren't expecting. And of course, businesses who have hired many large agencies get used to that, and they know how to be a little bit, navigate that, and maybe even write it into their contract that no, we're not, we need an experienced senior executive account agent. So, but I see that a lot, and it's very painful for a lot of people because it's missed expectations.
Yeah, that one is a big one. I think I've also seen a lot where you have the creative director in an agency or the account manager, account supervisor, and they're there to do the dog and pony show up front. They do a lot in the pitch, but when they win in the business, it's kind of like, well, I'm around. Here's my card. If you need anything, let me know. And then they just disappear. And it's only when something's urgent, something serious, that sometimes they pop back in. But you're absolutely right. I saw the carousel of account executives who were junior just come through all the time. And when it was another web firm that happened to be at the table, and I just thought, man, client's got to take notice of this and not feel like he's really valued when you have junior after junior after junior person on your business. And they're essentially, to what Jen was saying, they're learning your business all over again. And you have to bring them up to speed rather than them sometimes. Is like, okay, I just educated your predecessor 2 months ago, but here we go again. And it's really, I think that is one of the biggest things that tends to happen.
And because they're so green, they often don't have the the life experience of working with many clients. And so they're, a more senior account exec can usually bring their experience to the floor and say, this is what we're going to be doing, and this is why. But usually the more junior ones, and this is not to bash junior people. We need them, right? Every business needs more junior people to nurture and bring up into the more senior roles. It's just some of those agency structures are very poorly planned out as to what this is going to mean to our client relationship over time. I see it even in like SEO agencies, and that's all they do. But again, they have their sales guys that then hand it off to their account reps, and the account reps aren't as knowledgeable sometimes, and the sales guys sometimes say things that they shouldn't say, and it's the standard. You called it a dog and pony show, but it does happen.
Yeah. Paul, how about you?
I think there's a couple things is getting too hung up on the creative. Yes, like I said earlier, the website needs to look good, but ignoring the things that search engines are looking for because you're all hung up on the creative and on how it looks, and overlooking the basics, the simple wins. If you have a business that doesn't have a lot of reviews, and they have a few reviews and they're good reviews, but they're old and they don't have too many, one of the first things you should do is encourage them to get more reviews. That's a quick win, and a lot of times it's overlooked. So overlooking those basics, those simple, easy things that you can do to help them up front, because like we said earlier, SEO takes time.
Yeah.
But getting more reviews can be a quick win.
Yeah, that's a good point. And those reviews, I think, sometimes are the things that the client ignores, or sometimes the agency just doesn't push as hard as they should, and make that actually part of their process. It's kind of like, hey, you should probably ask people for more of these, and then it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. Yeah,
it's kind of like the old adage that if someone's pissed off, they'll let the world know, but if they're happy, they're less likely to be vocal about it. So you have to encourage that and say, hey, ask for reviews, and you can automate that process as well, which takes the burden off of the business owner or the office manager or whoever, because it can be automated to a large degree.
Yep. Ian, we've sometimes, I think this is funny because I had posted something on Facebook, and it was about focus groups. It really led to this topic, actually. But there are good focus groups. Don't want to say they're not. But there are also some really, really bad ones. And sometimes what we can run into is that the client doesn't always believe what a focus group or a series of interviews are saying, because maybe it's not what they want to hear. We wish that it wasn't that way, but let's face it, sometimes it is. They may say, "Oh, that's just Bob. He's quirky. He'll say that," or "That's so and so, that client." It's just one or two people. But when we're talking to a customer or prospective customer to maybe convey some useful insights about brand positioning, what can we do to basically ensure that the client believes us, that they believe our findings are genuine, and they're less dismissive of the things that they don't like or they don't want to hear? How do you deliver that?
Sure. Yeah. And just a comment about focus groups. Again, they can be very, very powerful. It's where I've seen them go off the rails is usually when the people running the focus groups don't know how to run a good focus group and don't know how to get the right people in the room to get the right answers. Right. But your question really leads me to think most about you have to know what you want to know first before reaching out to your clients, your prospective clients, especially when you're trying to figure out, what's my core difference in the marketplace, branding questions, product or service positioning questions. You need to understand what a group of people who are your ideal customers can potentially tell you and what they can't potentially tell you. Because there's a whole lot of data that we have access to, usually, that can also feed us a lot of information. So how can you make things more believable? First of all, make sure that you're asking the right people, right? So, and you're asking them the right questions that will give you the right answers, and that you can always dismiss, right? It's still very much a human business. People are making decisions, and I wouldn't nullify the voice of the business owner or the people within the business, because they're the experts in their business. They're the experts in actually selling their service or product. But I would say data is super, super important. You can find out a heck of a lot of about how people are buying, what their perceptions are by their actual actions, not just what they say. Because again, when you get, whether it's a focus group or client interviews, these are super powerful. We do a lot of client interviews, and these are amazing. We learn so much about how they perceive our client's business, where potential gaps are, what they do best, all of those kind of things. And so those are really, really valuable things. But again, you need to understand what is it that you're trying to answer. I've seen where, especially in large businesses, focus groups are just part of your standard operating procedure. There's no real thought as to why you're actually doing the focus group, except because you're supposed to. And so, if there's no clarity in what you're trying to ask people and no clarity in who you're asking, then you're going to get some really bad information back. And a prime example, this one is I don't know, a thorn in my side, because I studied as a graphic designer. I was a graphic designer for several years before I got into marketing. And one of the things I see all the time, when we were trained as graphic designers, you have to have a reason for everything. And whether you really do have a reason or not, you have to be able to express a reason, and you have to be able to stand up and argue in a good way why something is in your particular design, why you've chosen the colors, why you've chosen the curve of an S, whatever it is, right? You should have a reason. And so what I see nowadays is a lot of people have, they go to Fiverr or 99 Designs, they get 99 designs, they throw up their 10 favorite onto social media, and they ask just the general public, hey, which logo do you like best? And the big gap in that is, first of all, you as a business know your business, your target audience, right? The designer probably chose things for a certain reason, maybe, hopefully, but you're also just throwing it out to everybody from an aesthetic aspect, saying, well, I don't like blue, or I like green, but they're not in the position to really make a decision, a business decision, as to why this one's better or that one's better. And it just becomes kind of a popularity contest. And I've seen people choose bad designs that way, and I hate to see that. So that's my soapbox for the day.
I like it. And it leads it very well into one of the questions I'm going to have here for us, which is, I want to go back to one thing, though, at the risk of being redundant, which is basically speaking the same language, agencies and clients. Paul, this one's for you. There's talk of full service. We hear that all the time. We're a full service agency, or we have systems, or there's a lot of granular stuff like, oh, here's some heat maps, or here's some quality scores. And so the hard question, I think, to answer here, but take a stab at it, is, are we agencies talking about the things we care about more than what clients care about? And if so, what kinds of things should we communicate more clearly to small business owners so we can stay on the same wavelength as them more often?
Well, I hope you have systems. If
yeah,
you don't, that's a problem.
Yeah, well, what I mean is.
Oh, I know.
We tend to love our own stuff so much. I agree. I like systems as much as anybody, but
well,
I've been told that,
it comes down to, is it relevant? is it something the client needs to know? Because, like I said earlier, we do a lot of things in the background on the technical side that we'll explain it to the client and why we do this, but we don't harp on it because it really means nothing to them. But I think they do need to understand that there is a reason, going back to structured data, they'll never see it, but there's a reason you do that because the search engines need it. And I leave it at that. That's all they need to know. Heat maps. You don't need to talk to the client about that unless there's a disagreement between you want to do something on the website and they don't understand why. Then you can show them a heat map and say, this is why. This is what people are looking at. Other than that, don't bring it up. If it is relevant to them, to the client, then communicate it to them. Or if they ask the question, then let them know. But again, we run a lot of reports that we need to do our job, but the client doesn't need. And I think it was Ian said, why throw a 50-page report at the client that means nothing to them? If you do something on the agency side that helps you do your job, but it's not going to mean anything to the client, then don't throw it out there at them. Don't bring it up. If they ask, that's different, but that's kind of how we approach that.
Got it. And Jen, just to wrap things up with you, I think this is one I often consider to be one of the biggest threats sometimes to a relationship, even though we don't think it will be. But we have such a wealth of information out there that a client can read or hear, and like they read an article about advice that's different than what you told them, or they hear a speaker talking about social media like a tool or something and say, oh, why aren't we on TikTok or something? Or they have a friend or colleague telling them how they should change their website or change their LinkedIn profile or change this or change that. So I don't even have the real answer myself on this, so I'm hoping you do. How does an agency cope with this kind of dynamic? The knowing that there's so much out there and it can really confuse and conflict. How do you keep the client walking on the same path as you with all of that around you?
Oh, man. Oh, this is a zinger, Dan. Well, okay. So a couple of things there. So first of all, so from the agency point of view, let's just talk about what it really feels like. It feels like, oh my goodness, we've set a strategy for you. You bought into it. Like there's a reason why we're doing things, right? So it can be very frustrating on the agency side to hear that, because automatically you might feel like you're on the defensive, thinking, oh, what are the reasons we're going to come up with to defend why we're not where this client is asking us to be. On the other hand, I mean, it's pretty neat that your client would be that interested in what's going on with their marketing, that they're looking out there about, how can we improve? What can we do else? Who else is doing what in our industry and that kind of thing. Typically when we get these kind of questions or these kind of, oh, we should be here, we should be there, is because of some kind of sensationalized story, right? There's the competitor that got 2,000 leads because they did XYZ, or it's, my brother's, sister-in-law said this happened when she did that to her LinkedIn, right? So I think on this, what we tend to do is listen to the story. Like, what is it in there that they're looking for? Are they looking so that they can be on the latest and greatest and feel relevant? Or is it that they're looking for more leads? Or is it that they're just actually curious and they don't want to ask? They just say, I read it in a letter or read it in an article, right? A friend told me, that kind of thing. So right. I think that the thing is to, first of all, appreciate their interest in it, to be quite honest. And then second of all, to find out so what's the big deal about that LinkedIn profile? What is so interesting about TikTok that you're concerned about, and try and get to the heart of it. And they might be just wanting to make sure you're on your toes, or wanting to test you to find out, do you have a reason why we're not on these channels? And then I think it's up to you as the agency to say, well, here's the reason. Say, here's the reason why we're not. Or, you know what, we're 6 weeks into the strategy. We haven't decided to go there or not. But I think it's really important to listen to what they're saying about it. Are they feeling like they're left behind? Are they feeling like they'd like to contribute a little bit more to the process? Or are they just feeling like, oh my goodness, if my competitor got 2,000 leads last Tuesday, like, let's get on it. So
Yeah.
it's not any. I don't have a nice answer for you and wrapped up in a bow, unfortunately. But I think to listen to it and to figure out what's really behind there, because in probably no other industry is it so visible to everyone every single day. So, for example, you're getting your house renovated. You're probably not going to give your 2 cents to the electrician about how they should wire your house, right? Like,
Right.
that's just a skill, right?
Yeah.
But no matter what industry you are in, almost no matter what age you are at, you are exposed to tons of marketing messages every single day. And because of that, you may feel like you have a very good opinion on how your marketing should be done. So I think we have to be aware of that too. It's a very, very visible discipline that we're in. And I think we should kind of expect these kind of questions and not get thrown offside, so we can be a better educator to our clients.
Amen.
One of the things I think of too, Jen, is because I have a few clients that really like chasing after the latest shiny objects, right? And one of the questions I like to ask them now, and it's been something I've developed over time, is, well, first of all, how much are you willing to invest in this new thing on top of what you're already spending? And if it's at the expense of something else, what would that thing be? And how confident are you? And this is just questioning. We have some answers to these questions as well that we can share with the client. But if it's TikTok advertising, well, are you going to replace Google ads that you're getting 500 leads from a month in order to try TikTok ads just because you hear it's great? So I find that's a really valuable question, as kind of a dual question there of, what are you going to replace with this new thing, or how much more are you going to invest in order to try out this hypothesis of this latest shiny object? That's
great. Yes, the shiny objects. I think you guys are right. It's always going to be a part of our lives. So that's great. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for tackling this one. It's not the easiest, and it never gets easier. I think it's always part of our challenge, but it does make us better. It doesn't feel like it all the time, especially when it's happening. But I think it makes us stronger to go through those kinds of things and to relationship build in some way. And just for those of you out there who think we've all got it figured out, nobody does. We're just getting smarter with experience. That's all. So keep pushing, and don't when things kind of dip a little bit, go wrong, or you think, gosh, I haven't figured out this relationship. You're doing the thing that we all try to do, which is, if it was just about creating things, anyone could do it, but this is part of it. So with that, thanks to the panel as always today, and we will see you next time right here at Marketing Guides for Small Businesses podcast.